I didn't hear sirens first. I didn't get a warning letter or a knock on the door. I found out something was wrong the moment I crested the North Ridge on my ATV and saw a luxury house sitting dead center on my land. By sunset that same day, the house was rubble, and the HOA president was screaming that she was going to sue me for destroying her property. That morning had started the way most good mornings on the mountain do: quiet, honest, unremarkable. The kind of quiet that makes you forget the rest of the world exists. Frost still clung to the shadows under the pines, the air smelled like cold stone and sap, and the workshop behind my cabin still carried the scent of walnut shavings from the desk I'd sanded the day before. Ellie handed me a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the dead and gave me that look she always does before I head out alone, the one that says, "Don't go chasing trouble, even though we both know trouble has a way of finding me anyway." My plan was simple. Ride up the North Ridge, check a few boundary markers, clear whatever winter storms had knocked loose, and be home before lunch. I've done that ride hundreds of times. I know every bend in that trail the way some people know the streets of their hometown. That's why the thing I saw halfway up stopped me cold. It wasn't natural, too straight, too polished, a flash of reflected light where there shouldn't have been any. My hand eased off the throttle without me thinking about it. I killed the engine and listened. No chainsaws, no generators, no voices, just the mountain breathing. I stepped forward, boots crunching through pine needles, and then the trees opened up. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd missed a step off a cliff. There, perched proudly on my slope, stood a fully built luxury cottage. Wraparound deck, stone columns, floor-to-ceiling windows, fresh sawdust dusting the porch like powdered sugar. It wasn't a hunting shack. It wasn't a temporary structure. It looked like something pulled straight from a real estate magazine and dropped into the middle of wilderness that hadn't asked for it. You don't need a map to know when something is wrong. But I checked anyway. GPS, parcel overlays, digital boundary pins. I've owned this land for over 20 years. It's been surveyed more times than I can count. There was no ambiguity, no gray area, no maybe. That house wasn't near my property line. It wasn't brushing against it. It was deep inside my land, built like the mountain belonged to someone else entirely. I didn't shout. I didn't pound on the door. I didn't demand answers from empty windows. I did what a man with a background in law does when reality stops making sense. I documented everything. Panic makes you sloppy. Procedure makes you dangerous. I walked the perimeter slowly, taking photos, narrating timestamps, logging distances. Gravel had been laid for construction vehicles. Trees, old growth oaks, had been cut clean for the deck. Whoever built this hadn't rushed. They planned it. That realization hit harder than the house itself. Confidence like this doesn't come from a misunderstanding. It comes from entitlement. Inside, the place wasn't even finished. Open junction boxes, cabinets still in cardboard, no furniture, no personal items, and no tools, no water bottles, no generator. Just silence. The kind of silence that tells you a work crew packed up fast. They didn't just trespass, they ran. I called Ellie. "Come to the North Ridge," I said. "Bring the drone." She didn't ask why. When she arrived and confirmed what I already knew, her words were calm but sharp. "This isn't even close," she said. "They're completely inside your parcel." The drone went up. It caught everything: the structure, the stumps, the boundaries, the slope. And then Tom, a retired structural inspector and friend, took one look at the foundation and shook his head. "This thing's a death trap," he said. "No rebar, shallow footings. One heavy snow and that deck comes down. Anyone under it wouldn't survive." That was the moment it shifted from illegal to urgent. Under abatement law, an unpermitted structure that poses an immediate danger can be removed. Not angrily, not recklessly, methodically. By mid-afternoon, Joe brought his excavator up the ridge. Ellie documented everything. Every movement, every beam, every collapse. It wasn't demolition, it was correction. And then right as the deck started coming down, I heard it. A Porsche engine. It sounded wrong on that trail. Too smooth, too confident. She stepped out like the mountain had personally offended her. Platinum bob, beige pantsuit, designer sunglasses, high heels sinking into pine needles like she expected the ground to apologize. I didn't know her name yet, but I knew the type. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she screamed. I took a sip of my coffee and let the silence stretch. People like her hate silence. It reminds them they're not in control. "This structure is on my land," I said evenly. She laughed. Sharp, brittle, impossible. "I'm the HOA president. This development was approved." Ellie didn't even look up from the drone controller. "Your HOA ends half a mile downhill." Karen, because of course her name was Karen, ripped off her sunglasses. "I have documentation. You can't destroy private property." "Private property requires ownership," I said. "You don't have it." That's when the Tahoe arrived. Black, polished, doors flying open. Her husband and 2 hired enforcers stepped out like they'd been waiting for a cue. Things escalated fast. Too fast. One of the men shoved me. Gravel slid under my boots. Tom stepped in. Joe dropped from the excavator, shouting. Dust. Ego colliding with bad decisions. Ellie's drone never stopped recording. Karen screamed that we were attacking her. Her husband swung and missed. One of the guards tried to charge Joe and got locked down like a training exercise. It wasn't cinematic. It was ugly and stupid and entirely unnecessary. Then Karen did the one thing people like her always do when they're losing. She pulled out paperwork. She shoved it into my chest. "There, proof. You signed this." I held it up for the drone. The signature was mine, except it wasn't. No ink, no indentation, just a high-resolution scan lifted straight from my deed. Forgery, and she'd handed it to me on camera. Sirens came soon after. The deputy watched the footage quietly. No drama, no reminders to calm down. "Evidence doesn't need volume. No arrests today," he said finally. "This is now civil and potentially criminal." That night I sat alone on the porch and wondered if I'd just ruined my own life. HOA money is deep. Legal fights are slow. And for the first time since this started, I felt tired. Not angry, just tired. I asked myself the question that keeps good people up at night. What if I'm wrong? The next morning the EPA showed up. Anonymous complaint. Hazardous waste. Same ridge, same clearing. I felt something sink in my chest. This wasn't about winning anymore. This was about burying me under paperwork and suspicion. For a moment standing there while they bagged samples, I honestly thought, maybe this is where I stop. Maybe I sell the land. Maybe I walk away. Then Tom arrived with a hard drive. Trail cam footage. Midnight. Same Tahoe, same people. Dumping debris after dark. Ellie played it back in front of the agents. That was the moment I felt it, the shift. The weight lifting. Not relief. Resolve. Emails followed. Leaked by one of Karen's own board members. Instructions to build anyway. Promises to bury me in motions. Phase 2. Expansion plans drawn directly across my land. It wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. In court, Karen tried to look like a victim. Her attorney talked about trauma and community vision. I stood up and let the truth speak. Maps, video, emails, forgery, illegal dumping. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Your claims are dismissed with prejudice," she said. "This matter is referred for criminal review." Karen didn't scream this time. She just collapsed into herself. I walked out when it was over. No celebration, no victory speech. Just the mountain air clean again. Some people think power comes from taking what isn't yours. They're wrong. Power comes from standing your ground and letting the truth finish the fight.